What would happen if you took the artistic designs of Generation 2 Pokemon and applied them to Hoenn? You'd get Pokémon Emerald Seaglass, a ROM hack that continues the Sugimura-esque feel of the early generations instead of whatever the heck this is. While there are certainly plenty of gameplay changes as well, the graphics are by far the best part of this game. Look at this guy and tell me he doesn't look adorable. But not to his face, that would be rude. To show off this awesome game, I've attempted to play through it as a hardcore Nuzlocke because that's basically in my name. Before I begin, what other ROM hacks should I try out? The game starts off with Professor Oak, instead of Birch, giving his spiel about Pokemon. Since I'm supposed to have come from the Johto region, let's just go with Ethan. At the start, everything is basically the same. I'm forced to travel with the luggage, and there are Vigoroth already working to clean up. I randomly decide to talk to the GameCube, and it turns out that's where you put in cheat codes. I swear I had no idea. Hoping to get a potion from the PC, I open it up and pull out a shiny charm instead. I am just an expert at finding random things. Not that it helps me ever get a shiny. There are also a few settings to customize the game so you can play how you want. I put level caps on and obviously go with hard mode. What's the worst that could happen? May also has a secret GameCube cheat box, but let's just go save Birch already. He looks even more pathetic this way, if that's possible. All these starter sprites look pretty awesome, but I choose the only correct Hoenn starter, Mudkip. The others are good, but they're not Kip. We get our first real glimpse at how the battles look, and these are also pretty sweet. You'll notice the occasional flashing screen during a battle. That's just a known thing that apparently they did to prevent freezing. Perhaps the best addition to this game, though, are the Pokemon followers. Just look at this Mudkip following me around the overworld. There is no better way to bond with your Pokemon. They just love going for walks. Thanks for ruining the mood there, Kip. In the Oldale Town Mart, they're selling a few TMs, including Rain Dance. This should be useful very shortly. Before that, I battle May on Route 103. She has Trico, of course, but a plethora of tackles by Kip renders that gecko unable to battle. After getting Pokeballs, my mom gives me a Dex Nav, which functions a lot like the Gen 6 version, allowing you to search for specific Pokemon, which doesn't do much for a Nuzlocke. I end up getting a Zig on Route 101, and Surkit on 102. Wally claims to have caught a Routes, but I didn't see it, so I doubt it actually happened. What does happen is a Pidge on 104, followed by a Worm in the Petalburg Woods. At this point, I've already had a few normal trainer battles, but I'm thrown off my game a bit when this Aqua Grunt sends out a Wailmer. I mean, it makes more sense than a Poochyena, I just didn't expect it. After 2 Tail Whips, Zig is Water Gun crit, so it's time to swap. Tackle does a decent amount, but its rollout does more. I was not expecting that either. One more hit and Worm would die, but I don't want anyone else to die here, so even before getting to the first gym, we have a necessary sacrifice. Her death allows Kip to survive a rollout and finish it off with a tackle. For a trainer who's normally a pushover, that was not appreciated. Goodbye, Worm. I hardly knew thee. Pidge gets me through the rest of the woods easily enough, and in the berry shop I find them selling nature-changing mints for only 100 Pokédollars. That's insane. I use these quite a bit to optimize my team natures for upcoming gym battles. In Rustboro City, I find another major change to the game, the Wishing Well. You'll find wishing stars throughout the region, and by throwing one into the well, a Pokemon pops out. Like Sness the Sneasel here. Not bad, even if she won't help for the first gym. Girl should be useful though. First, there is a serious matter of this child no longer laughing. As a parent, I know the secret words to make kids giggle. How did that not work, you robot child? Moving on to Roxy, after our little Team Aqua debacle, I'm prepared for a more difficult fight as opposed to just being able to spam Water Gun. And she starts with Anorith, which is a bit tougher than your typical Geodude. But Kip was ready to Rain Dance and then take it out with Water Gun. Not wanting to get absorbed by Lileep, I pivot to Girl. She tail whips while being rock tombed time and time again. 2 double kicks is now enough to defeat that plant. Roxanne's ace is still Nose Pass. With its high defenses, the best strat seemed to lower its attack with Growl, hoping he doesn't get a crit. When I try to double kick, it doesn't work out so well. Look at that pathetic damage. Kip comes out on a Harden, makes it rain, and once again, water guns. When he's at risk of dying to a crit, I swap to Sir Kit, whose nickname I will fix once I can. She has Swift Swim, and with the rain boost, a single bubble defeats Nosepass, as I win my first badge. The Wishmer Tunnel Team Aqua Grunt also has a Whalmer, but I was ready this time, and I have a secret weapon, Zig. What? I don't have any grass or electric types yet. She's the best I've got. She has Headbutt, which could make the Rolling Whale flinch, but thankfully it doesn't come to that. You are free now, Pico. Shortly afterwards, we have a few evolutions. Because I want to fully experience this game, I will get one Wishing Well Pokemon after each gym, just to be more random. I don't imagine I'll be hard pressed for encounters anyway. After Sneasel, I'm hoping for someone great, not so much this Sneck. And if you want great videos, like this one, subscribe to the channel, make sure you leave a like and a comment. I would really appreciate it. Leaving Rustboro brings us to a May battle. Kip is confused by Wingull and hits himself several times, eventually defeating the Pico wannabe. For Trico, I swap to Pidge to use Gust. A few hits knocks him out too, defeating May for the second time. One beautiful and quite relaxing boat ride later, we arrive in Dewford Town, which now has non-fishing wild encounters, giving me a Yanma. At this point, I'll stop showing every encounter. I think I've shown enough to emphasize the fact that you can get Pokemon not typically found at this point in Emerald. There isn't much to do on this island, except for battle brawling. I start with Pidge, who easily defeats Makuhita with 2 Gusts, but he does get his Oran Berry knocked off in the process. This brings out his new ace, who is apparently a Heracross. He bulks up, which is fine, since Gust is a special attacking move, which still did less than half, even being 4 times effective. That was unfortunate. I'm likely going to lose Pidge here, which is just the way things go. Heracross heals with a Citrus Berry, and knocks Pidge's block off again, but he survives with 2 HP and defeats the Fighting Bug. I can't believe he made it. I'm not going to risk him again, so on Meditite, I pivot to Yama to deal some chip with Infestation, and defeat it with 2 Sonic Booms. After seeing how little Gust did to Heracross, I was prepared for another Pokemon in the dead box, but we narrowly avoided it. For now. Steven is still hanging out in a cave, no change there. The post-Brawly Wishing Well Pokemon ends up being a Shuckle. Shucks is one of those Pokemon who objectively isn't great in most situations, but I love him anyway. How can you not? In Slateport, I find a shop that sells these awesome evolution items, something that Hoenn was severely lacking. I'll take a Moonstone for future use. I also participate in the Battle Tent, where you rent random Pokemon, and every battle can swap them out for another. I end up winning 3 in a row, which is as far as you can go, and only get a full heal. That's not really worth my time or effort. For our next Team Aqua encounters, these guys may resist SNES, but with Feint Attack and Ice Shard, he easily takes them out. Enter Archie, who, how can I put this delicately without being cancelled? He looks darker than I expected. I get that in Generation 6 they kind of changed his look, but compared to Archie from Emerald, this is a huge difference. He's like pulling a Rachel Dolezal or something. Another thing that's changed in Slateport is the Pelipper Flight guy who takes you to Pacifilog. I'm not sure how a single Pelipper takes us both there, and quite honestly, I don't want to know. Pacifilog now hosts the Pacifilog Scuba Safari, which is an underwater combination of the Safari Zone and the Bug Catching Contest. Basically, you dive underwater, without needing the HM, thankfully, in search of awesome items and rare Pokemon. Whoever gets the best Pokemon wins the contest. I end up finding a Seal, but not thinking on it, damage her first. That might actually lower my score. As a matter of fact, I come in last, after a Whalmer and Tentacool. Pathetic. But I still do get a Magnet, as well as the HM for Waterfall. Something I'm sure Kip will love. It takes 2 more tries, but I end up catching a Gorobus, winning me the contest. My reward is a big Pearl. That's not at all what I was hoping for. I can't even keep that fish either, per Nuzlocke rules. Bit of a waste of time if you ask me. Speaking of, May waste my time further by trying to beat me in a battle. Doesn't she realize how hopeless this is? A Chew one-shots Wingull with an Electro Ball, baiting out Grovyle. I pivot to SNES, who barely survives a Leaf Blade. Call me crazy here, but Grovyle at level 22 should not yet have that move. I didn't expect it. Still, it all ends up okay, as Ice Shard is a one-shot. I haven't yet taught Kip Waterfall. I do right after this battle, actually, but 2 mud shots defeat Growlithe, who I thought was going to be a Slugma. Looks like her Pokemon are changing a bit too. Wally is a tiny speed bump that I knocked down on my way to Watson. On the way, I end up catching a Volbeat, who coincidentally is an electric bug in this game. And even though this might limit her moveset for a bit, I decide to evolve Girl into her final form before facing Watson. She doesn't have any ground moves, but I do teach her Rock Tomb. She leads the charge, coincidentally, against his own electric Volbeat. Rock Tomb is still a bit weak, but she takes very little from Infestation, so it's not a concern. I do swap to Kit on Magneton because he actually has ground moves. He gets confused, but hits through it to Mudshot. This brings out his ace Manectric, and to cure confusion, I swap to Beat. Now it's his turn to use Confuse Ray, and deal some chip with Bug Bite. Manectric just keeps howling, letting Beat Tail Glow, and eventually knock it out after a pathetic Quick Attack. Last is Flaffy, who knows Power Gem, apparently, so it's a good thing I swapped to Kip. A few mud shots and he is victorious. That may have been the easiest gym so far, mainly because Manectric didn't do anything. By the way, having a Nidoqueen walk behind you, I've got to admit it's a bit intimidating. Just look at that girl, who loves to smell flowers. Back to the Wishing Well, my post-Dynamo Badge Wish Pokemon is Misdreavus. In Fall Arbor Town, I see a surprise visitor to the Hoenn region, Professor Elm, who wants to give me a special Johto Pokemon once I have a Pokedex of 50. Which is not hard, but more difficult in Nuzlocke, you know? I do want to show the encounter I get on the very next route, because I did not expect to see a Bulbasaur there, and I'm quite happy with that encounter. Before doing all the Team Magma stuff, I backtrack to Mauville and enter the game corner where I can get an Alolan egg using pinball points. There are 4 different types of pinball games: a Meowth one where you knock his coin off, whack a seal, whack a ton of Diglets, and my personal favorite, the Ghost one. You hit enough Ghastlies until they evolve into Haunters, and you hit the Haunters till you get 1 giant Gengar that you then smack a few times. Eventually, I get 2 pinball points and get myself an Alolan egg. I also find on the other side of Meteor Falls a Team Aqua Grunt who has a spare Paldea egg. Back in Petalburg, these shops have updated items like the Ability Capsule. After selling a bunch of stuff to buy one, I realized that Kip doesn't have Torrent. He's been damp this entire time, and I never knew. I used the capsule on Circuit to give him the Water Power ability. This is an ability that appears to reduce damage from fire moves. This actually should make her resistant to fire, since Masquerain is now a bug water type. Speaking of fire, let's go to the volcano to challenge Maxie. His Mightyena confuses Oman, but he hits through it well enough. This baits out Gligar, who is not the Golbat I expected. I had planned on pivoting to Pika to Electro Ball, but now I need a different strategy. I still do pivot, expecting a flying move, and get Gligar paralyzed. This then lets me bring out Circuit for free to Bubble Beam. Camerupt is also Bubble Beamed. Well, that was easy enough. There's one more egg I can get here, so why not? I now have a team of 3 eggs, 2 of which are about to hatch. So I bike back and forth until the Alola egg hatches. I'm really hoping for Vulpix, or even a Cubone would be great. Instead, I get a pile of sludge. Quite possibly my least favorite Alolan form. Thanks for nothing. Hopefully the Paldea egg will be better. And it's a Tinkatink. I'm okay with that. For Flannery, I start with Circuit, who should resist fire if I'm reading the ability correctly. She starts with Rain Dance, just in case, but that is rendered useless by a sunny day. Next turn, it's Rain again, as Slugma unleashes his full Overheat power, doing 9 whole damage. Well, it's safe to say Circuit does in fact resist fire. Even if Flannery doesn't know it, this battle is over. Her Flareon, Torkoal, and Camerupt all fall to a single Bubble Beam each. I take it back. Watson was not the easiest gym. Flannery takes that title. I didn't even get a chance to use my Flashfire Arcanine, who I taught Dig for this exact purpose. What a waste of a TM. Back at the Wishing Well, I get Skitty. No thank you. In Petalburg once again, they have even better items like the Ability Patch, which gives your Pokemon its hidden ability. I mess around with some of these abilities and fight my father. I lead with Hit, who obviously has guts. I wasn't sure he would start with Spinda, but in the off chance he did, Hit does have a Person Berry, so Spinda is easy enough to take out. Slacking, for whatever reason, starts with a loafing turn, which really throws me off. I swap to Fanny on a counter, who bulldozes to slow this thing down. She is also countered, but that just boosts her defense thanks to stamina. And with Rocky Helmet Chip, Slacking is taken out. Next is Politoed? Last I checked, he wasn't a normal type. I'm expecting a Surf or another water move, so I pivot to Misvis on a Dive. It does a decent amount, but she should be able to heal back up with Draining Kiss. Unless this Politoed has a Quick Claw, letting him hide underwater once again. You have gotta be kidding me here. Alright, come on out, Shucks. He is hit a few times, but does manage to Toxic before being body slammed to death. I had hoped it wouldn't do quite enough to take him out, but it's fine. His sacrifice lets Misvis heal with Draining Kiss, and after some toxic turns, Politoed is done for. Norman's last Pokemon is Vigoroth, who probably has a feint attack or something, so I pivot to Hit on a gem-boosted Facade. Well, alright. Phanpy makes a return to bulldoze a few times for the win. Okay, Norman, that was tougher than expected, but only because I was not prepared for a Politoed. Like, that came out of nowhere. Goodbye, Shucks. You were only used in one whole battle. I get a plate of eggs from the well, defeat Team Aqua thanks to that protein boost, and find May again. Circuit's ability prevents a burn as she surfs Ninetales. Ludicolo is then signal beamed to death. I now know that Grovyle has Leaf Blade, which of course means that Pidge is instead hit by Breaking Swipe on the swap. No matter, 2 wing attacks from my bird, even with the attack drop, and he wins. When I get to Fort Tree, I am surprised that the tree houses are not above the ground like normal. Instead, those trees look like they came from Secret of Mana or something. To be clear, that's not a complaint, just an observation. Winona starts with a Fearow, who falls to choose Thunderbolt. She then Volt Switches on the Tropius to bring out Sness, who still outspeeds after a sunny day, to use Ice Beam. Expecting a Steel move from Skarmory, I pivot back to a Chew to once again Thunderbolt. Since Pelipper is her penultimate Pokemon, I'm guessing Altaria is in the back, so to set up for that, a Chew Volt Switches, killing Pelipper, bringing out Sness once again for free. However, Ice Fang only does about half. It turns out Altaria is a Dragon Fairy in this game, not Dragon Flying, so Ice is only twice as effective. After a brief mental debate, I use Ice Fang once again, hoping it's not a low roll, and it isn't. We beat Winona without too much difficulty, even if her Altaria tripped me up a bit. With the ability to now fly, I return to Elm, who gives me a special spiky-eared Pichu. I mean, he has Technician, so that's kind of cool, but I already have a few electric rodents. This time, the well gives me a Porygon, which is alright. I do have Upgrade anyway. At this point, I finally find a Razor Claw and can evolve Sness. You may not realize how often he's been on my team, because it's frequently in between the gym battles, but he has been a huge help this entire game, and I've been waiting for this one. So, I start with the fully evolved Sness against May, who easily takes out her Tropius. A Chew Volt Switches on Pelipper, not that it did a lot of good, as I need to swap from Swampert to Growl. After an ability capsule, he has a Fur Coat, reducing all physical damage. Even so, his Flamethrower is weakened because Sceptile is part freaking dragon. These type changes are really throwing me for a loop. Once the rain wears off, a few Flamethrowers defeat Sceptile, and he can then easily take out Ninetales using the dig move I gave him all that time ago. So unless there's a dramatic change somewhere, May is defeated for the last time. As I'm making my way through Team Magma's base, Oman, the Primeape, evolves into a Nihilape. I've been hoping he was in this game. Let's start with him for the Maxi battle, and quickly run away because he has Gliscor, not Mightyena. Kip can handle him with a few waterfalls. Oman makes a return to Karate Chop Ursaring, but gets down pretty low. Circuit pivots on an Earthquake and surfs Camerupt, but he still has one Pokemon, and I only brought 3 to try and match his team size. That's what I get for being so honorable. Thankfully, Circuit is strong enough to once again shot with Surf, so it's not an issue. One Team Aqua hideout later, I am finally free to explore the giant ocean. And by explore, I mean I go in a straight line to Moss Deep, where apparently I can't count, because 2 plus 2 is 4 Pokemon, not 5. It's my turn to be dishonorable. I start with Old Reliable SNES and Misfis. They have their own Misfis, who is not Psychic type, by the way, but a knockoff Shadow Ball combo easily defeats it. Next turn, they team up on Claydol as Lunatone Light Screens. Solrock falls to a single knockoff, and Lunatone does next turn too, trying to set up with Calm Mind. Well dang, that was way too easy. Normally double battles are difficult. Speaking of, we have another double battle, this time against Maxie. I start with Circuit and see the Dugong. She has Ice Scales, decreasing special attack damage, allowing Circuit to spam Surf, taking out both Gliscor and Crobat thanks to Ice Shard. Since Maxie brings out Dodrio, I then swap to Phanpy because I really don't want Circuit to die. C dies to a close combat, which is sad, but she was a sacrifice anyway. Together, Kip and Phanpy take out the Ursaluna and Dodrio in a few turns, but Kip ends up falling asleep. For Maxie's last 2 Pokemon, I pivot to Circuit and replace Kip with Bulb the Venusaur, who gets Leaf Bladed and Scalded. Circuit does what she does best, Surf. The only problem is, it's so powerful that it brings Bulb down low enough to get crit killed by a Night Slash. I had been hoping to keep Bulb all the way to the Elite Four, but I guess not. He only needed to survive for 1 more turn and he would have lived. That's too bad, actually. The Venusaur loss here was really unfortunate. Since Maxie had a full team of 6 Pokemon, I'm expecting that Archie will too. But he only has 4. That's fine, I'll only use 4 of mine. After an Amnesia, Circuit is replaced by Nuzjo the Shiftry to Leaf Blade the Wailord. Pidge easily wing attacks Breloom, resisting a Sky Uppercut because he's only Flying type now apparently. I didn't realize that until now. And then Nuzjo returns to Leaf Blade Sharpedo, getting down pretty low. His final Pokemon is Crobat, who Achu easily thunderbolts to death. Following that battle, we have a Clash of the Titans, where Groudon is turning into a religious figure standing on water. This is resolved by bringing in a larger Titan to scare the other ones away. Saving the world gives me the chance to battle the final gym leader, where Achu easily takes out his Starmie. On Whiscash, I pivot to Tang the Tangrowth to Sunny Day, activating Chlorophyll. Even with Amnesia, a single turn Solar Beam is more than enough. Now Kingdra will obviously survive the hit, but I have nothing to do besides Solar Beam, and I get hit by an Ice Gem boosted Ice Beam, killing Tang. What is with me these last few battles? I had been doing so good too. To not waste the sun, Eggs the Execute also has Chlorophyll and a 1-turn Solar Beam. Give me a break. It's like the best grass combo. Unbeknownst to me, Octillery survives the last Sunny Day Solar Beam because he's a Fire type now. I swap to Pidge to see what he's going to throw at me, and it appears to only be Octazooka, so it's safe for Achu to come out and Volt Switch. A few Giga Drains by Eggs against Celio, and we win the final badge. Though it came at the cost of Tang, who was to be my go-to grass after Bulb died, so now I need a backup of the backup. Before facing Wally, I find out that with an ability patch, Tink can get the Huge Power ability, which is without a doubt one of the best ones. Even with Huge Power though, an Ironhead is not strong enough to take out the Fairy Altaria, so I probably should have Gigatonned Hammered, but I didn't think it was necessary. It really wasn't, because Altaria doesn't do all that much to me. Grau is supersonic by Magnezone on the swap, but hits through it with Flamethrower. Thanks to Sturdy, I have to swap again to Misfis, who Shadow Balls. Gardevoir also survives the first hit, but only Future Sights, which isn't really a concern. I let Tink take the crit Future Sight, bringing Grau back to Flamethrower Roserade. Last is Delcatty, and Oman hits her with a single close combat for the win. And just like Vanilla Emerald, he simply stands there after his defeat. Trainers normally walk away at this point, dude, or else we're just standing here staring at each other awkwardly. After some last minute team changes, we enter the final stretch of the game. Oman low kicks Mightyena to death, but runs away from the Honchkrow. Several double teams later, Achu is eventually able to connect with a magnet boosted Thunderbolt. I accidentally Electro Ball when I meant to Volt Switch on the Cacturn, but I clicked the right thing the second time. Oman is slowed down on the swap, but still kicks the Cactus. Tink comes out to fake out Absol, doing almost half of its HP before Spirit Breaking. Crawdaunt also gets his spirit broken in one hit. Now, speaking of breaking some spirits, here comes Phoebe. SNES's strongest dark move is Night Slash, but he also is holding a Choice Band. This means that literally all of her Pokemon fall in a single hit, including her new Miss Magius, Dusknoir, and Frostlass too. Great job, SNES! I'm confident that O-Man could do the same thing against Glacia, but I want to at least start with a Chew. The only problem is this Dugong must have Ice Scales, since Thunderbolt was a bit weaker than expected, even with a Magnet. But since he was paralyzed, Electro Ball becomes much stronger and he is knocked out. She Volt Switches on Glacia to bring out Tink, who immediately falls in love. Power means nothing if your infatuation is too strong. O-Man's attack is lowered on the swap, but he still defeats that evolution. Because of the attack drop, Tink comes back out. Between Fake Out and Gigaton Hammer, Walrein cannot survive. Even Cloyster with his crazy defense falls to 2 Iron Heads. Last is Glalie, who is also Iron-Headed. Tink did a lot for that battle, but I didn't want to rely on her too much because that's what the Drake battle is for. He starts with Kingdra this time, and I with Tink. Fake Out, followed by Spirit Break, takes it out, baiting out Steelix? He's not much of a dragon, but okay. Surkit makes her Elite Four debut to Surf. I promptly pivot back to Tink to Fake Out and Spirit Break the Salamence. Flygon is also Spirit Breaked, but for old time's sake, Altaria is Iron-Headed just like Wally's was. Why not? This brings us to the championship battle against Wallace. He starts with Wailord, nothing new there. Thankfully, Eggs is slower, so Sunny Day supersedes Rain Dance, allowing him to Solar Beam that giant whale. Milotic survives the hit. She'll probably Ice Beam too, but that's okay. A Giga Drain heals Eggs back up at least a bit. Tentacruel will use a super effective poison move, or Ice Beam works too. Tink could take it either way, and Gigaton hammers after Fake Out Chip. Expecting an Earthquake from Whiscash, Surkit comes out to Surf. Now Gyarados easily survives the first hit and starts to Dragon Dance. I can't afford to waste a turn swapping here, so Surkit stays in, takes another Earthquake, but beats Gyarados with Surfs. Ludicolo is last, and I don't want to lose Surkit here. A Chew swaps in, and then immediately swaps out with Volt Switch, letting Eggs finish off the champion with a few last Giga Drains. This makes me the new champion of the Generation 2 version of Hoenn. But it wouldn't be a complete Emerald run without the final Steve battle, which I'm happy to see still exists here. He starts with Skarmory, as expected, so Growl flamethrowers the Steel Bird. Sturdy does let him set up spikes though. I then pivot to O-Man, expecting Ancient Power from Cradily, but I should have known better. He loves to use Confuse Ray. O-Man proceeds to hit himself twice in Confusion and once by Giga Drain. By my calculations, Rage Fist should now be at 200 base power, though it does much less than expected. That's because hitting oneself in Confusion does not increase Rage Fist power. I didn't know that. Since we're at the end anyway, I take a risk to close combat, and he hits through it, defeating Cradily. Rage Fist is now at 150 power, but is also super effective against Metagross, who falls in a single hit. Surkit is brought out, and with a Choice Specs, easily defeats Armaldo. Now Aggron does have Thunder, which likely will not do a ton, but I like Surkit too much to risk it. Kip uses Brick Break to break the Sturdy, and it didn't do that much damage. You see, it turns out that Aggron is now a Steel Dragon. I probably should check their typings before attacking, but why learn from my mistakes now? The run is basically over. Earthquake does defeat Aggron, and then Claydol falls to Liquidation, defeating the final trainer in the Hoenn region. This does bring us to the official end of the video, and I've gotta say, this is a solid ROM hack. Obviously, the Pokemon graphics are superb, but even just the quality of life changes, like how HMs were done, were a huge improvement over typical Hoenn. In other words, I strongly recommend this game to anyone who wants a refreshing approach to Hoenn. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next region.